it's kind of like kids. Like the same question comes up about how much money should I have before I have a kid, and it's like a lot. They cost a whole lot, but at the end of the day, in most cases, you're never ready. And so, and it's kind of, there's an act of faith component to it where it's like, you have to understand that God's your provider, and you have to be in that position and that submission of understanding that he's your provider, and you're probably not going to get to a point where you're like, I have so much money, now I'm ready to get married.
Right. What happens when opposites on handling money attract? This is a good question. This is definitely us.
Yeah.
And I think especially in our early years, we had a lot to work through.
So that's what happens. You have stuff to work through.
There you go. Yeah. But I think the more that you work through, the more you realize that each one brings something unique to the table that can actually push you forward in what God has called you to do. And so where it could seem like the math guy is right and I'm wrong because I just want to spend, actually bringing those things together bring out a whole new thing that you each can't have on your own, right?
Yeah, well, and there's a balance aspect. There's the benefit of a balanced and healthy life. Two miserly savers who just want to squirrel everything up away, like just aren't going to live the balanced life that they could. And the same thing with two hardcore spenders, like very well might find themselves in a lot of trouble at some point. So there's something about the balance, and I think that's why it's so common to see opposites attract in this thing.
Absolutely.
So that's what you want to shoot for the balance. Any tips when it comes to handling money in marriage? Yes, actually.
A lot,
a lot, but one of our favorite tips is to make sure that you and your spouse both have personal spending money.
This is huge.
With your name that you can spend without judgment from your spouse. Because what happens, most couples, what they'll do is they'll have one checking account, all the money goes in there, and one spouse will run off to the store and buy a pair of shoes from Nordstrom.
That is so important to me, you know?
Or we'll go to Lowe's and buy a third table saw or whatever the thing is.
That's important to him, but not to me.
Yeah, but what happens is they do that at that time of the month where it's like it's getting down to just a little bit of money in the account, and it's like, we got to buy groceries next week, and this spouse didn't, blah, blah, blah. So now we're in a fight because you spent money on shoes, when we buy groceries, blah, blah, all that stuff. I've seen that happen so many times. We've been through it plenty of times. And so the key is to have your own spending money earmarked. Now, I do suggest that they're joint accounts, because the point isn't to hide money from your spouse. The point is to have money that is just for you to be able to spend on the things that are important to you as a human being.
Yes, and that way it does not create any fights. And I think this probably got rid of 90%
this easily reduced 90% of our money fights by following this one tip.
Yeah. How much money should I have before marriage? As much as you can.
So there's a couple different ways to answer this. As a guy, I felt a responsibility to have a somewhat reliable, steady job or somewhat reliable, steady income. I think you'll find instances where that wasn't the case and God was calling two people to get married and then, he moved them down a path. But I think in general, I think that's just being wise, having a job to be able to take care of you and your spouse and your family. Beyond that, I think it's kind of like kids. Like the same question comes up about how much money should I have before I have a kid. And it's like a lot. They cost a whole lot. But at the end of the day, in most cases, you're never ready. And so, and it's kind of, there's an act of faith component to it where it's like, you have to understand that God's your provider, and you have to be in that position and that submission of understanding that he's your provider, and you're probably not going to get to a point where you're like, I have so much money, now I'm ready to get married.
Right.
So that's my answer.
Yeah, but putting yourself in that position where you have to rely on God is a good thing. We were definitely in that position, and we got to see God do some really cool things. But the thing that we did in that position where it was like we just don't really have that much is we did pray a lot, and we worked as hard as we could, right? Like we weren't just like, we'll just pray and hope it all works out. I mean, we were doing both of them actively together. And I think that was what was exciting, is we got to see God do some really miraculous things in our finances. I think have as much as you can, and if not, just pray and ask God to help you along the way.
Why should couples focus on developing financial skills together?
This is super important, actually. Yeah,
when we first got married, I didn't, I don't know, I think I did everything.
You did everything, and I was happy about that for a while because it seemed overwhelming to me. But I think once we actually got on the same page, our financial life moved forward so fast I think it was because we were unified in it, and there wasn't just you're just dragging me along anymore. We're actually now unified and pushing that thing forward together, not just in the way we spend our money, but also as like in prayer.
Yep. Yeah, there's anyone who's married knows this. Like having unity in your finances with your spouse is really important. Yeah. And I think that's part of it. Like even though finances and that stuff isn't your number one most thing you're interested in, like your willingness to step in and actually have some of these financial conversations where you rather wouldn't has been beneficial for our marriage as a whole. So I think that's why it's important to develop financial skills together, regardless of whether you're the spender or the saver. It doesn't mean you have to like dive in and whatever, spend hours and hours on it, but to just have something and to be involved in some way would be really good.
Yeah.
Does marriage make you worse at handling money? I don't think so. I think it actually makes us a lot better.
I think so too.
But it requires humility because for a long time, I'm the saver and you're the spender.
Yes.
And I thought that you were just wrong.
and honestly, I thought I was wrong too.
And so when you do that, then I think it can make things worse. But when you're humble and you understand that God put you together for a reason, then it actually can be a unifying thing where one can chase 1,000, but two can chase 10,000.
Absolutely.
Where you have an amplifying effect by being married.
How can a couple resolve differences in expectations around money? I think a lot of us grow up differently. Like we get married and we realize that we've grown up differently and have very different views on money.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did early in our marriage was we took a financial course together. And man, I think that helped us so much because all of a sudden it went from, in the beginning I was kind of like, can you just take this problem and just, tell me what to do and I'll just make sure that I, follow along. But it took us from that to all of a sudden me going, let's do this next. And why don't we do this? Let's try this. We really got on the same page. And I think that was really all it took for us was just going through this course together.
Well, yeah, it opens up the door for conversations that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Yes.
And I think that's the most important thing is just dedicating that time to having these conversations. And the course, like taking a course together or reading a book together, just allows you to do this.
Yeah.
And so you could do this without doing that and just, deliberately set aside whatever an hour each week to talk about some of these things. But the course or a book just makes it much easier to do. So I think that's a great way to do this.
Yeah. Any tips on how to save money in marriage? Yeah, I mean, this is a really good one. But one of the things that we did that I think worked really well for us is whenever we had a goal in mind, so if you're trying to save an amount of money, to have a reward for you waiting at the end of that goal.
Or along the way,
milestones along the way. That's really good too. Because sometimes it can just feel like you're just working hard at this thing and you're giving up so much, and is it really worth it? But when we hit those little milestones or the final goal, like each time we would just do a little celebration, just a little something that would just keep us going, keep us motivated. And that worked really well for me. Honestly, I don't think I could have done it if we didn't have those things in place.
Yeah, and because for me, it's a little bit easier for me to save, but if you're married to someone who is not like you, who is a spender, this is one simple way to help. Set some milestones. Be willing to take that one step back every once in a while by spending money
to take 10 steps forward.
To go out to dinner or whatever.
Right.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
What can couples do to focus on resolving debt in their marriage? I think one of the best things to do is, especially when you're different than your spouse, is to identify common goal, understanding why we want to get out of debt, okay? And that's really important because my motivation as a saver to get out of debt is different than yours.
Yes.
And so for me, it was, I don't want this burden on my back. I want to be able to start saving more. But for you, it meant there's more money each month that we can spend towards things that we like. And so understanding that each one of you understand what's at stake and what's to be gained really helps.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think you painted a really good picture of this is what life can look like when we get out of debt. Because you were definitely the one driving this more, and I was on board. But I think you were the one that was saying, "This is what this can look like. Look to the future. See what this is like. See what it feels like." And then we set up little milestones along the way. So when we first paid off the first credit card or a car or something like that, there was a celebration afterwards, which is what kept me going. Because I would you can see the progress on paper, but that doesn't really mean anything if it doesn't affect your lifestyle at all. So when we would have that, all right, as soon as we get this credit card paid off, we're going to go to dinner at this place and we're going to order this. And you're thinking about the meal, that was what we did to celebrate. And that really helped us.
Yeah.
What should couples focus on doing with their money? Man, I think that we've talked a lot about using your money as a tool to accomplish the things that God has set out for you to accomplish while you're on the earth.
Yep.
So to me, this is not about, I just want to have a certain car or a certain purse or have my kids go to a certain school. That might all be mixed in there. But to me, that's not my goal. Yeah. My goal is actually to be able to say yes when God is putting something on my heart to do. So whether it is sponsoring a kid in another country or sending a child to the summer camp at your church, or it can be a myriad of different things.
Giving to the GoFundMe, setting up a pastoral retreat. There's so many things that, that I think God might be dropping on our hearts. We've talked to people who wanted to start a business and felt called to do that, but didn't have the money there to do it. We've known people who felt like they were called to work for a specific ministry, but felt like they couldn't take the pay decrease because of their debt. Right. So all of these things factor in. But when we understand that money is a tool that helps us to fulfill what God has called us to do, it just reorients things and it changes things. So that is, for us, that's our number one focus, and that's what we recommend. And within that, yes, be saving, be doing smart things with your money, be investing some money, be giving. But I think that's part of it, is having some money, knowing that it's a tool for God's purposes.
Okay, what is the one financial tip you wish you knew before you got married? That's a good one.
Yeah, definitely the importance of paying attention to your money.
Yeah.
It is harder now than it's ever been, I believe, to manage your money and actually see what's going on. Because
it's not just cash.
Yeah, it used to just be cash or maybe a checkbook. It was just really easy to see. You had one checking account, see what's going on. But now, we have Cash App and we have Venmo and we have PayPal, and then we have a credit card or multiple credit cards, and we have a checking account. And all the stuff is going on and everything's moving, and it's hard to see what's going on. So it's easy to not pay attention to what's going on. And then you just get to the end of the month and it's like, I guess I don't have much left or whatever. And so it requires intentional effort to actually be paying attention. And the thing is that there's this law called Pearson's Law that explains that when performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured, performance improves. So that means that when we measure how we're performing or what we're doing, just by the mere fact of measuring it, it gets better. And so just like if you are driving a car down a highway and you see a police officer with a radar gun pointing at you, you're gonna hit your brakes. If you're not, we have something else to talk about, but you're gonna hit your brakes because you know that your performance or your speed is being measured, and therefore you're going to slow down. And this has been proven time and time again for people who literally write down everything that they spend in a week, or from a weight loss perspective, write down everything that they eat. You don't have to try to spend less. You don't have to try to eat better. You just naturally do it just because you're measuring it, just because you're paying attention. So there's so much underestimated power in this that I don't think anyone realizes this. We've seen students who have saved hundreds and even thousands of dollars a month just by doing this one thing, beginning to pay attention. So it's incredibly powerful, and I wish I would have known that before we got married.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so if this content was helpful to you, feel free to check out our book, Simple Money, Rich Life, or check us out on our podcast, Seed Time Money.
All right, be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more marriage content just like this.